And then what do you run for nutrients?
Oh man, I've ran a variety of stuff, kind of similar to you. Uh, being in this field on Instagram, there's a lot of company that reaches out to you, and I'm like, yeah, I'll try some stuff. So I've tried a variety of nutrients. From Athena to Canna to Mills. And I'm using right now a dried powder line by Green Planet Nutrients called Horti line. It's brand new. And it's different in the sense that, a lot of people claim that when you buy a bottled nutrient, most of it is water. So you're going to end up buying more and more bottles and it weighs a lot, right? So I'm like, why don't I try a different line that's more dried salt base? I'm not sure if that's the right terminology. And it seems to work. So basically, you have your reservoir, whatever, how many gallons you want to mix in, then you add your salt, you mix it up, and then you pH to your target, and then you're done. And it's quite economical because a bag of such powdered nutrients lasts for so many gallons. You can mix so much, right? But that's also the very scary thing about growing with cocoa is you have to be able to mix the nutrients properly, which takes some practice, but you can learn. Anyone can learn.
Yeah, the powder based ones are just so convenient. Like you mentioned, it goes a long way.
Goes a long way.
And yeah, I mean, when you're growing with the bottled nutrients, a lot of it is water. A large percentage. I heard upwards of 98% of it being water. But yeah, the powdered form can definitely take you a little bit further depending on which lineup you're using. So are you starting the reservoir in like a low EC, or I'm not sure if you use EC or ppm, starting low and then kind of working your way up throughout the grow, or how do you do the feedings?
Yeah. What you say is correct. I will start at a lower concentration. I use EC, so I have like it's called a Blue Lab Truncheon. I'm not sure if that's how it's said because I'm pretty French. The Truncheon comes out in two ppm formats, so different scale, and there's also the EC scale. So I use the EC one because then you have to think about the different scales that are out there. Um, I'll start pretty high. A lot of people are they're quite surprised when I tell them how high I start my seedlings. We're talking 2.1, 2.2 EC right off the bat. The plant is like just sprouted this big. I'm like 2.2. But you know, plants being plants, it's not just about the EC level. The light needs to be at the right wattage or DLI or PPF if you want as well, and the temperature and the relative humidity. Everything needs to be right in for the plant to be able to uptake that kind of EC. Right. Else, if you run like a really small light, like 25 watts because it's a seedling, and you feed something 2.2, they're going to burn. They can't process it. So personally, I start them strong right off the bat. It's because these are I grow only autoflowers, and autoflowers being autoflowers, to get big plants like I do, you need to perfect. It needs to be perfect. The veg needs to be on point. If the veg is not on point and something happens to the plant early on, it will fast flower on you. And if you have your plant, this big starting to flower, it's only going to end up being this big, right? So it needs to be on point from day one. So that's the only tricky thing about autoflowers.
Yeah, for those folks listening on podcast platforms, he mentioned this size to this side. He was doing about 8 inches down up to 12 inches or 2 feet at the max, really. Yeah. That stunt that happens within the first 20 days, any sort of deficiency really holds back the plant. I've had a handful of autoflowers where it's like there's this little bit of stunt and it totally ruins the stretch and and the overall, because it goes into flower like you mentioned and then just starts flowering and the stretch stops and all of a sudden you're stuck with that size plant no matter what throughout the rest of flowering. So it can be tricky. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a little eye opening for folks to realize that you start with that high of EC in the seedling stage. Now, are you keeping that for a period of time and then upping it even further, like in flowering, for example? Like, what do you typically go up to?
Um, I want to say the peak EC for me would be mid flower. So in autoflower, assuming for me a harvest is typically day 90 plus or minus a week. So we're talking in the day 70s from sprout is roughly where my EC is on max. So I'll be hitting close to like 2.8, 2.9 EC. So basically my range from 2.2 to 8.29 is what I typically do. And as you progress towards harvest, it lowers back again towards the 2.3, 2.4. It doesn't need to be crazy specific, but it's roughly what I do. So mid flowering, 2.8, and then a lot of light. That's your max light. I'm running 750 watts in the 5x5, and the 4x4, I'm close to 650.
This clip was brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrowIt15 to save on any of their gardening products.